The dreaded Mercury retrograde. And this one I'm referring to is a double retrograde because it will start in one sign, then shift into another, so it will affect two distinctly different areas of your life. Hello, beautiful people. Life can be a challenge, but at least we have each other. And in this video, I'll be going over the upcoming Mercury retrograde and the details of how it will affect your individual sign with some tips on how you can make the most of this energetic shift. And all I ask in return is that you give that like button a little tap, a baby tap. Okay, no more wasting time. Here is what your sign can expect from this upcoming Mercury retrograde from May 10th to June 3rd. Let's go. Now this is going to be an intense one because Mercury, the planet of communication, will go retrograde in Gemini on May 10th and then will shift into a retrograde phase in Taurus on May 22nd until it finally stations direct on June 3rd. But don't worry, I'm going to make sure that you are well prepared by giving you a breakdown of how it will affect your individual sign. But right now I'm going to give you a quick rundown of the do's and don'ts for everyone for this Mercury retrograde. The don'ts of Mercury retrograde are: don't start or launch a brand new project or a brand new relationship. Don't sign any new contracts without going over every single detail meticulously. Don't assume someone knows what you mean or how you feel unless you have told them directly and clearly. And if it's possible, don't have any surgeries, especially cosmetic surgeries. Now here are the things that are great to do. Do revisit and perfect any unfinished ideas or creative projects that you started in the past but you got off track and didn't complete. Do reach out to friends that you haven't spoken to in a while but you'd love to catch up with them. Do reorganize your home or your workspace, and above all else, do stay away from freaking out. Mercury retrograde is a great time to slow down and do the things that you've been putting off. Follow these do's and don'ts and things should run pretty smoothly. Let's get into what this Mercury retrograde means for your individual sign and the best way to make the most of this energy. Okay, my powerful Aries, when Mercury goes retrograde on May 10th in Gemini, this will be in your third house. So Aries, be prepared for a bit of an overwhelming feeling of nervousness or even worry to come over you. Now I say be prepared because if you're prepared, you will know as soon as that feeling starts to creep up that you will make an agreement with yourself to not give into the narrative that your mind is attempting to convince you of. Worry only exists when we start entertaining the what ifs of the future. So because you are prepared, you will connect yourself to the present moment and ignite that Aries confidence that says no matter what comes up, you will handle it in the most effective way possible. And the things that are outside of your control, you will release, and then you'll refocus your energy on the areas of your life where you can affect change. It will also be very important to handle any necessary repairs on your car. Make sure that you check up on all your tires. Make sure all necessary precautions are taken before you take any long trips, and absolutely watch your speed when you're driving. A third house Mercury retrograde transit can increase the likelihood of getting a speeding ticket. Also make sure if you've reached out to someone and you haven't heard back from them that you check the message that you sent to make sure it went out. Also make sure in communications that if someone says something that triggers you, get clarification on exactly what they meant first by asking them direct questions before you decide how you feel about it and what you're going to do about it. Now, when the retrograde shifts into Taurus on May 22nd, this will be in your second house. So Aries, prepare for any money that is owed to you to possibly be postponed. So make sure you have a bit of a nest egg if possible to dip into. Stay away from any really big purchases if you can, and also make sure to save all receipts when you do make your purchases. Your mantra before making any big decisions for the third house and the second house transit should be review and reevaluate, Aries, and make sure you take your time. Focusing your energy on a project that you started in the past and you didn't get to finish would be an excellent way for you to get the most out of this retrograde phase. Do that and you should get to the other side of this better than ever. Okay, my powerful Taurus, when Mercury goes retrograde in Gemini on May 10th, this will be in your second house. So Taurus, it will be really important for you to make sure you don't let yourself get too stressed out if some unexpected bill shows up or if something that you recently purchased starts to be more trouble than it's worth. If you're in a relationship, some financial stresses can come up, but just use it as an opportunity to come up with a game plan that you both feel good about. This will still be during your season, so you will at least have a positive energy surrounding you that could potentially counterbalance any frustrations that Mercury retrograde can bring along. If you were thinking about asking for a raise at work, you might want to wait until after this retrograde phase. Just make sure in preparation for this retrograde, you put some money away in case any issues do come up, because if they do, the second house indicates it more than likely will manifest in your financial world. world. Now, when the retrograde shifts into Taurus on May 22nd, this will be in your first house. This may cause some unexpected feelings of doubt or insecurity to come up in terms of when you're dealing with other people and just feeling like the way that they're perceiving you is not at all how you feel like you're intending them to perceive you, or it's just not at all how you know yourself to truly be. So Taurus, this is the perfect time to access that part of you that does know yourself and does know your worth, and that part of you that can say, you know what, as long as you're being true to yourself and authentic with how you express yourself, then you cannot allow your mind to take you down that dark hole of doubt. So don't allow this Mercury retrograde to take you off course, Taurus. This is the perfect time to remind yourself that you only need one person's approval, and that's your own. If you can look in the mirror and you can be happy with who you are, then you are for sure on the right path. So reaffirming your worth and your confidence should be your theme for this retrograde, Taurus. Now, keep that at the forefront of your consciousness, and you should make it to the other side of this unscathed. Okay, my powerful Geminis, when Mercury goes retrograde in Gemini on May 10th, this will be in your first house. So Geminis, this will be leading up to your season that begins on May 20th. So you are actually going to be able to use this to your advantage. When Mercury retrograde transits your first house, it ignites that part of you that questions if you're presenting yourself to the world in a way that you feel good about. And when your season begins, the sun's transit through your first house, which is all about rebirth and renewal of your energy, will also be urging you to really identify who you want to be in this chapter. So instead of getting caught up in Mercury retrograde's tendency to bring doubt and uncertainty, instead use it to begin working out how you want to reinvent yourself for your season. So this could for sure work to your benefit. Now, Mercury retrograde transit your first house can also lend to you getting tripped up and how you verbally express yourself, or you may find yourself saying one thing and meaning another. So just make sure that you take your time to explain anything that needs to be explained when you're interacting with your friends or your co-workers, or really any relationship dynamic. Now, you want to avoid any unnecessary drama brought on by miscommunication. So don't get caught up in any sort of gossip, and also just make sure that if you say you're going to do something, know that you're going to do it. Otherwise, don't say it. Now, when this retrograde phase shifts into Taurus on May 22nd, this will be in your 12th house, and this will be directly after the sun will have shifted into your season. Now, this can serve to bring up some past situation that is emotionally painful for you, but just know it is being brought up in order to heal any of that pain that you may have suffered. Now, this 12th house transit also ignites your intuition and your psychic energy. So you want to make sure and keep a dream journal during this time. This way, if you receive any messages or any creative ideas or any useful information from your subconscious while you are asleep, you can make sure that when you wake up, you remember it because you've written it down. So actually, Gemini, although this Mercury retrograde phase may be an intense one for you in an emotional way, it will also be very transformative because it will not only work with the sun's 12th house transit when you're in Taurus season, but it will also work with the sun's first house transit when you're in your season. So be ready for healing, be ready for spiritual renewal and rebirth. It is your time to rise like the Phoenix, Gemini, from any past struggles. So use this energy to assist you in your transformation. Okay, my powerful Cancers, when Mercury goes retrograde in Gemini on May 10th, this will be in your 12th house. So Cancers, although things have been going pretty good for you lately, and the sun will be in your 11th house, which is a very positive energy, this Mercury retrograde may prove to bring some intense emotions to the surface. So if you start to feel a bit heavy, don't worry. It is just some deep-rooted healing that needs to take place. A Mercury retrograde transit your 12th house can even connect you to your past lives. So it'll be great to keep a notebook or your phone by the bed. So if you have vivid dreams during this time, you can wake up and write them down. And as time passes, the information in the dreams may begin to make more and more sense to you. Now, don't let any of this heaviness take you out of the flow that you've been in. A 12th house Mercury retrograde transit can amplify your psychic connection. So use your intuition to guide you and remind yourself that no one knows what's best for you better than you do. Of course, take into consideration any advice or any wisdom from the people that you trust and the people that you know love you and have your best interest at heart, but always go to your inner truth for the final say so. So the 12th house transit will have more of an inner world influence than an outer world influence, which is intense, but at least you know you won't be accidentally sending somebody crazy emails or signing a contract that later reveals itself to be a bust. Now, when the retrograde shifts into Taurus on May 22nd, this will be in your 11th house. So if you find yourself getting into a disagreement with a friend Please make sure to get all of the facts before you decide to banish them to the "you've done me wrong" frozen world of contempt. A Mercury retrograde transit the 11th house can for sure stir up some craziness in your friendship circle, so get ahead of this by making sure to ask any necessary questions before deciding how you're going to feel about a situation. This is an area of life where you are not meant to use your intuition, and this isn't because you don't have good intuition, but why use your intuition when you can get the facts by asking the direct necessary questions to the person involved? So it looks like this Mercury retrograde may be an opportunity for healing and transformation with the 12th house transit, but also for making sure to have clarity of communication when it comes to that 11th house transit. So don't be anxious about this one, Cancers. It's going to be great for you. Just embrace it and trust your truth. Okay, my powerful Leos, when Mercury goes retrograde in Gemini on May 10th, this will be in your 11th house. So Leos, don't be surprised if you bump into an old friend that you haven't seen in a while, or a friend that you've been trying to get in contact with and finally they resurface or they hit you back. This 11th house transit can also reveal if you are not balancing your social energy and focus with your personal inner energy and focus. Meaning, if you're the type of person that spends most of your time out hanging with friends and just socializing and having a good time, then this retrograde can bring up a situation that will indicate that it's time to regroup and spend a bit more time alone and checking in with yourself. So if you start to feel a bit uninspired in terms of not having as much excitement about going out and being social, don't worry. It's just the energy of the retrograde helping you to recalibrate and rebalance. This 11th house transit is also an excellent time, Leos, to think of something that you used to dream about having, but you let go of that dream. And now you realize that it's something that you actually still desire. This Mercury retrograde in Gemini is the perfect time to give that dream some energy in terms of taking action to make it happen. You will be surprised at the results that you may get. Now, when the retrograde shifts into Taurus on May 22nd, this will be in your 10th house. So this could indicate that there is some job or some project or opportunity from the past that didn't really have the outcome that you wanted, but now it's coming back around. So keep your eye out for that, Leos. This could also indicate that work may have gotten a bit overwhelming for you lately and you just need a break. So if you're planning a vacation, taking that vacation starting on May 22nd until Mercury goes direct on June 3rd could prove to be good timing for you, Leos. Now, I know when Mercury is retrograde, travel can be challenging, but a small vacation doesn't need to mean major travel. It could just mean taking a break and relaxing and giving yourself some time off. And if you do travel, as long as you pay very close attention to the details and you plan for some delays if they come up, then it can work out just fine. And not to mention the 11th house and the 10th house don't really indicate any travel issues, so it could be smooth sailing for you. So it looks like you should get to the other side of this Mercury retrograde with some more clarity regarding work and with having connected to a friend from the past. So enjoy, Leos. Okay, my powerful Virgos, when Mercury goes retrograde in Gemini on May 10th, this will be in your 10th house. So Virgos, if you have some project or job that you started in the past and you did not get to finish, this retrograde phase is the perfect time to finish it, because it could end up not only yielding some great financial results, but it could also prove to lead to other employment opportunities. Also, if there's a job that you applied for in the past that you did not get and you're still looking for employment, this could be the perfect time to reapply with the potential of getting a different outcome this time around. Now, if you are employed, be very conscious of what you say and how you say it when it comes to interacting with the people that you work with. It will be very easy to get caught up in a web of miscommunication during this Mercury retrograde transit. Even if you have the feeling that someone's taking something the wrong way, it may just be worth it to clarify exactly what you meant so that way things don't go left. Now, when the retrograde shifts into Taurus on May 22nd, this will be in your 9th house. So Virgos, I usually tell people to stay connected to the present moment and allow your present circumstances to inform your next steps. But during a 9th house Mercury retrograde transit, it is actually very important to be clear on what you envision for your future, because yes, our present day choices, of course, have influence on how our future will unfold, but this is especially true during a Mercury retrograde 9th house transit. So be very conscious of the choices that you make from the period of May 22nd to June 3rd, because the influence those choices will have on your future self are very powerful. Now, if you have any travel planned during this time, be very careful in terms of expecting delays and paying extra attention to all details of your itinerary, because a 9th house transit amplifies that whole Mercury retrograde causing issues when you travel situation. So the more you can get ahead of these issues, the better. The best way you can spend this time is by going back and relearning a skill or retaking a course that you know would benefit you when it comes to achieving the goals that you've set for yourself. Not only can a brush up be good, but it could also lead lead to you interacting with and meeting someone that could play a very important role in your future being successful. You got this, Virgos. Just take your time and do what you do best, which is pay attention to the details. Okay, my powerful Libras, when Mercury goes retrograde in Gemini on May 10th, this will be in your 9th house. So Libras, you may find that the way you see things relative to spirituality may come into question during this time. This retrograde phase through the 9th house can bring on one of those moments where you start to ask yourself, what is it all for? What's life all about? And not in a way where it's a doomsday situation where you're disenchanted by life, but more so where you just want deeper meaning to your own existence, which can actually lead to more motivation and exploration of different teachings and philosophies. So this can prove to be an eye-opening transit for you, Libras. Now, just like I was saying to Virgos, it's probably best if you don't travel, if you can help it, because the 9th house transit is where the confusion with travel and complications with travel get out of hand a bit. So it may be best if you do take this time during this Mercury retrograde to just explore ideas and read up on different teachings and reconnect to your spiritual practices, reconnect to your belief systems, or even revisit an old book or a spiritual teacher that you know has been a source of inspiration in your life, but you haven't read up on or recently listened to for whatever reason. Now, when the retrograde shifts into Taurus on May 22nd, this will be in your 8th house, which can bring this retrograde energy to your romantic relationship if you are in a relationship, Libra. Don't be surprised if issues about joint finances come up, or if you've been dissatisfied with the physical connection. That dissatisfaction can get exacerbated during this time as well. The good news is the 8th house Mercury retrograde transit is all about eliminating the old, so you may have a chance to renew the excitement with your significant other if that's a possibility, or this may be the time where you realize that you want more and the situation has run its course. Either way, clarity and spiritual expansion is what this Mercury retrograde is offering up, Libras, so embrace it and you will come out on the other side of this retrograde phase feeling a renewed sense of excitement for life. Okay, my powerful Scorpios, when Mercury goes retrograde in Gemini on May 10th, this will be in your 8th house. So Scorpios, if you're in a relationship and there are any issues that have not been addressed, especially of a sexual nature, be ready for them to come to the surface. This is also the time that if you're in a relationship, joint finances can come into question, meaning is the balance of give and take in the relationship in a good place? And if it isn't, this is bringing the opportunity to figure out what the two of you intend on doing about it. Now, if you're single, yes, you don't have to tend to that area of life, but this 8th house transit can for sure bring up some financial complications. So just make sure that if you plan on taking out any sort of loan, or if you plan on dealing with any financial institution in any way, that you really pay attention to the fine print, or if you can, maybe avoid it altogether until the retrograde phase is over on June 3rd. This is an excellent time for healing, Scorpios, so just know whatever does come to the surface, whether it be in your relationship or if you are single, just on a personal front, just know that deep healing is possible, and a healing that can also help to remove any blocks that you may have had, especially when it comes to your manifesting relationship with money. Now, when the retrograde shifts into Taurus on May 22nd, this will be in your 7th house. So you know what that means, Scorpios. Whatever was ignited in your relationship will get really intense if not immediately dealt with. The 7th house also indicates all relationships in your life, not just romantic. So those of you that are single, you aren't getting out of this one. So Scorpios, this will work in conjunction with the 7th house sun transit to make sure that you're dealing with anything and everything relationship related. This could also indicate someone from your past coming back around, so just keep your eyes open for that. Also, know that the best way to get to the other side of this Mercury retrograde is to just remind yourself that relationships are all about making sure both people are heard and both people have the opportunity to weigh in on solutions, so that way they can both state what they would be most satisfied with in terms of resolution. So if you both are open to compromising to get to the point where you both feel good about the final agreement in terms of how to navigate the relationship moving forward, then things should actually run pretty smoothly, and this retrograde phase could prove to strengthen your relationship in a way where it's better than ever. And remember, this is not just romantic relationships, but friendships and family relationships and even work relationships. So keep that in mind, Scorpios, and this Mercury retrograde could end up being a fantastic opportunity for you. Okay, my powerful Sagittarius, when Mercury goes retrograde in Gemini on May 10th, this will be in your 7th house. So Sagittarius, be ready for an old connection to come back around in some way. This could be an old friend, an old romantic relationship, relationship. This 7th house transit could also indicate that within a relationship, romantic or otherwise, an issue from the past that was unresolved could rear its ugly head again. Now, I have full confidence in you as a Sagittarius to squash whatever comes up, because you are definitely not about letting things linger. But just remember that during a retrograde phase, communication can get a little problematic. So make sure that not only are you being clear and direct, which I know you naturally do, Sagittarius, but make sure that you are giving the other person the space to be heard and to be understood as well, which doesn't always come so naturally to you, because if you feel like the point that the other person is making is foolish in any way, you tend to dismiss them, which can just cause future problems. So call on your compassion during this retrograde phase. I know you have it in there. Now, when this retrograde shifts into Taurus on May 22nd, this will be in your 6th house. So Sagittarius, as you know from Taurus season, transiting your 6th house, this could very well be related to health. So some health issue from the past could come up, and the best way to get ahead of this is by taking care of yourself, especially in those areas where you know you fall short. For some, it may be diet. For some, it may be stress. For some, it may be getting enough sleep. Whatever it is for you, tend to it, and it can help you to avoid any drama this retrograde is attempting to bring your way. Unrelated to health though, it will be very important to make sure that your schedule is very detailed, because during a 6th house retrograde phase, you can easily find yourself feeling really overwhelmed and running late for things and just feeling like you've taken on too much, and you usually don't have that problem. So the more detailed, well, you might run late a few times, but feeling overwhelmed usually isn't your thing. So the more detailed and diligent you can be about your scheduling, and the more clarity and compassion you can have in your relationships, the more likely you are going to make it to the other side of this retrograde phase with no problem at all. Okay, my powerful Capricorns, when Mercury goes retrograde in Gemini on May 10th, this will be in your 6th house. So Capricorns, it will be very important for you to be very detail oriented, which I know you already are, but even more so during this retrograde phase when it comes to communication, especially with people that you work with. Now, make sure you are being understood down to the details, because miscommunication or misunderstandings can for sure cause major problems during this retrograde phase. Now, it will also be very important if you know of any people that you interact with that are gossipers. Although gossip can be funny and even sometimes fun, make sure to stay away from that energy. And we know it's best to always stay away from that energy, but especially during this retrograde period, because it will be very easy to get caught up in something that actually has nothing to do with you, and you then find yourself somehow in the middle of some situation and even experiencing negative repercussions because of it. So keep that in mind during this retrograde phase, Capricorns. Also, the 6th house does relate to health. So if there's any health issue that you've been ignoring, ignore it no longer, or it can prove to be much worse than it ever needed to be. So make sure to get on that. Now, when the retrograde shifts into Taurus on May 22nd, this will be in your 5th house. So Capricorns, don't be surprised if a blast from your past comes back around looking to reconnect. And this can be whether you're in a romantic relationship or not. So just be ready and remember why it ended in the first place. Obviously, if you're in a relationship, they have no room to wiggle their way in. But if you're single, unless they are bringing a completely different energy, and not with words, but with actions, unless they are bringing a completely different energy, just be aware that it can end with even worse circumstances than it did the first time around if you entertain the idea. So this retrograde phase for you will actually be much better spent reconnecting with an old friend that you just haven't had the time to connect with recently, but you know that there's someone that brings you joy and they bring a positive vibe to your world. Now, if you spend this retrograde phase tending to your health and also reconnecting with old friends, not old flames, then things could go great, Capricorn. Okay, my powerful Aquarius, when Mercury goes retrograde in Gemini on May 10th, this will be in your 5th house. So Aquarius, if you feel your creative energy starting to diminish, don't worry. It's just Mercury retrograde attempting to play with your confidence. Use it as an opportunity to remind yourself what inspires you. This is the perfect time to revisit the music that you used to love or the artistic endeavors that bring you inspiration and joy. It could also be the perfect time to reconnect with a creative partner from the past. If you do, just know that that could yield some very positive results in terms of helping you manifest what it is that you've been focused on manifesting during this time. Also be prepared, Aquarius, for an old flame to resurface. This could be someone that you didn't end on bad terms with, but it was more of that type of situation where the circumstances led you to disconnect. So if you do entertain the idea of having some fun together, just make sure that it is just that, all about the fun. Starting a new relationship during Mercury retrograde is usually not the best idea, so So maybe continue the connection and allow yourselves to have some fun and freedom around the situation until June 3rd when Mercury goes direct, and then check in with yourself to see if it has any long-term potential. Now, when this retrograde phase shifts into Taurus on May 22nd, this will be in your 4th house. So this 4th house transit may open up the floodgates of emotion, Aquarius, to something connected to your childhood. So just know that this is an opportunity for healing. Whatever comes up, embrace it and allow yourself to feel the feelings that you have connected to the situation or the experience, but then allow yourself to release those feelings and reconnect with who you are right now in the present moment. Realizing that now that you have released that energy, you have also not only broken down some serious barriers that may have been causing blocks in your manifesting power, but you now have made space to bring in the things that you've been working towards. So Aquarius, this could prove to be a fun and exciting Mercury retrograde that starts off with a revisit of some romance, but then ends with some major transformation that may have been sparked by a memory, but giving you a powerful boost into your future. So it's gonna be a crazy ride, Aquarius, but a positive one when you see that you come out on the other side stronger than ever. Okay, my powerful Pisces, when Mercury goes retrograde in Gemini on May 10th, for you this will be in your 4th house. So Pisces, it is going to be so beneficial for you during this retrograde phase if you go around your home, whether it's an apartment, whether it's a house, or even if it's just your bedroom, if you go around and you get rid of the things that you know have run their course and you get some new energy flowing in your space. This Mercury retrograde is giving you the opportunity to rejuvenate your foundation, your safe space, your sanctuary. It's so important that your home base feels like a place where you can recharge and be inspired. So if you're feeling in any way that you're stuck in life right now, Pisces, this is going to be the absolute beginning of a very successful remedy for you. So embrace this idea. See it as a creative and emotionally rejuvenating exercise and just go for it. You will be so glad you did. This will also be a good time to reconnect with your family if you have any past issues that you want to resolve. And it's also okay if you feel like that would be too much for you during this time. It's really about you taking care of your outer home and your inner home during this time, Pisces. So whatever that means for you is perfectly correct for you. Now, when the retrograde shifts into Taurus on May 22nd, this will be in your 3rd house. So Pisces, this is when it gets intense in terms of the typical retrograde madness. So make sure that you tend to any car issues, meaning make sure your car has had a recent checkup. This is a time where your car issues can get really out of whack, where phone issues can get really out of whack, where computer issues can get really out of whack. So just make sure you have, your hard drives backed up and even your phone backed up. Make sure everything's constantly charged and give yourself extra time to complete tasks related to anything involving technology, and pay extra attention to any form of communication because a 3rd house transit is directly related to this stuff. This way you can make sure you avoid any unnecessary drama. Review everything. And if you feel like someone isn't understanding what you're saying, be patient and take the time to explain exactly what you mean, especially if this comes up in a romantic relationship or a family dynamic, because as I'm sure you know, those types of misunderstandings can really linger and become so much more than they ever needed to be. But overall, Pisces, if you can avoid the technology and communication challenges, this retrograde phase can actually be a cleansing and a healing phase for you spiritually and emotionally. Okay, so there you have it. What you can expect from this upcoming Mercury retrograde phase for your individual sign, and the best way to make the most of this transit from retrograde in Gemini to retrograde in Taurus. I really hope you all enjoyed the information. If you did, please don't forget the baby tap. If you haven't subscribed, please consider doing so. Thank you so much for taking the time to come and hang out with me. I love you guys, and I will see you in the next video.